Imagine this with me for a moment. You're in the middle of a conversation that's starting to feel tense. The other person says something that rubs you the wrong way, and your first instinct is to snap back, defend yourself, or maybe even shut down completely. That's the moment, the split second, that decides whether communication moves forward with connection or collapses under reaction. Happier communication doesn't begin when everything is calm and easy. It begins in those high-pressure, emotionally charged moments when your reaction feels louder than your reason. C, the natural human tendency is to let reaction lead the way. Our brain is wired to protect us, to fight back when we feel attacked, and to defend when we feel misunderstood. But here's the problem: reaction rarely builds anything good. It escalates, it inflames, and it creates distance. And if we're honest, most of the conversations we regret aren't the ones where we stayed calm. They're the ones where we reacted too quickly. We yelled when we should have listened. We judged when we should have paused. We threw fuel on a fire that could have burned out on its own. That's why choosing connection over reaction is the very first step in creating happier communication. Connection means stepping back, even for a moment, to remind yourself, what's more important here? Winning this argument or saving this relationship? Proving I'm right or proving that I care? When you choose connection, you're saying, I value you more than this momentary conflict. And that changes everything. Think about the last time someone reacted to you instead of connecting with you. Maybe you opened up about something personal, and instead of leaning in, they criticized. Maybe you made a mistake, and instead of showing understanding, they exploded. How did that make you feel? Small, unseen, unimportant. Now think about the opposite. Imagine a time when you were frustrated, emotional, maybe even wrong, and the other person chose patience. They chose grace. They chose to connect with your heart before correcting your words. You probably walked away from that interaction not just calmer, but closer to that person. That's the power of connection. Here's the truth: reaction is easy, but connection is intentional. It takes discipline to pause and ask yourself, what's really going on here? What is this person actually needing right now? And more often than not, the need isn't for you to win. It's for them to feel heard, respected, and valued. That's why when you choose connection, you de-escalate the moment and you remind the other person that the relationship is bigger than the disagreement. And I know what you might be thinking, but what if they're wrong? What if they're attacking me? What if they're completely out of line? Let me say this clearly: connection does not mean you agree. Connection does not mean you back down. It simply means you refuse to let anger dictate the direction of the conversation. You can stand your ground without burning the ground between you. You can disagree without being disrespectful. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. When you replace reaction with connection, you stop giving power to the emotion of the moment and start giving power to the relationship. You show the other person and yourself that your maturity isn't defined by how loud you can get, but by how much peace you can bring. And over time, that choice creates trust. People begin to realize that you are safe to talk to, even in conflict. They start opening up more, being honest more, and respecting you more, because they know you won't weaponize your reaction. And maybe that's the deeper truth here. Choosing connection isn't just about communication with others, it's about communication with yourself. Every time you choose connection over reaction, you're training your mind and heart to slow down, to breathe, to step into wisdom instead of chaos. You're becoming the kind of person who brings light into tense rooms, who creates calm in conflict, and who makes others feel safe in your presence. So the next time you're on the edge of snapping back, pause. The next time you feel the urge to fire off that text, stop. Ask yourself, do I want to be right? Or do I want to build something that lasts? Because communication rooted in reaction builds walls, but communication rooted in connection builds bridges. And if you want happier communication, if you want stronger relationships, if you want peace that outlives the argument, choose the bridge. Always, always choose the bridge. Let's be honest for a second. Most of us don't actually listen to understand. We listen to respond. We're not fully present in the moment. We're just waiting for our turn to jump in, to prove our point, or to share our story. And while we think we're engaging, what we're really doing is shutting the other person out. Happier communication can't survive in that kind of environment. Because at its core, communication isn't just about words, it's about presence. It's about making someone feel like, in this moment, they matter more than anything else. Think about the last time someone really listened to you. I'm not talking about nodding along or giving you a polite, oh, hup. I mean the kind of listening where you could feel their eyes locked on you, their attention fully with you, their energy tuned into your emotions, not just your sentences. Didn't it feel different? Didn't it feel like you were actually seen? That's the power of listening with the intent to understand. It transforms conversations from routine exchanges into moments of connection. When we listen only to reply, we reduce the conversation to a competition. We treat words like bullets, waiting for our chance to fire back. But when we listen to understand, we create a safe space where people feel valued, not judged. And here's the thing. People rarely remember every detail of what you said to them, but they will always remember how you made them feel when you were listening. The challenge, of course, is that listening well doesn't come naturally in a world that's constantly pulling at our attention. Our phones buzz, our minds wander, our pride interrupts. We think about what we're going to say next instead of soaking in what's being said right now. But if we want happier communication, we have to break that cycle, because real listening requires sacrifice. It requires laying down your agenda, your rebuttal, your distractions, and giving your focus fully to the other person. And don't confuse hearing with listening. Hearing is passive, listening is active. Hearing is letting words float past your ears, listening is leaning in, making eye contact, catching the tone of their voice, reading the expression on their face, and asking questions that show you genuinely care about what they're trying to say. Listening is not just receiving information, it's receiving the person. Sometimes, the greatest healing we can offer someone isn't advice, isn't correction, isn't a solution. Sometimes, it's silence. It's letting them pour out what they've been holding in without fear of being interrupted, corrected, or minimized. When you choose to listen that way, you're saying, your story matters, your feelings matter, you matter. And that affirmation is worth more than 1,000 clever responses. Listening also has this incredible ability to lower walls. Have you ever noticed how people soften when they realize they're being truly heard? Defensiveness fades. Tension eases. The conversation shifts from attack to openness. That's because being understood is a universal human need. We all long for it, whether we admit it or not. And when someone gives us that gift, we can't help but respond with more honesty, more trust, more willingness to engage. And here's the beautiful part: listening to understand doesn't just change how others feel, it changes you. It grows your empathy. It stretches your patience. It teaches you to step outside of your own perspective and enter into someone else's world. And when you practice that long enough, it becomes a habit. You start showing up differently in every relationship, in your family, at work, with friends, even with strangers. You start becoming a person people are drawn to, not because you always have the right words, but because you create the right atmosphere. So how do you do it? How do you actually listen with the intent to understand? Start simple. When someone's talking, silence the inner voice that's already drafting your response. Resist the urge to jump in. Ask yourself, what are they really trying to say here? What's beneath their words? Repeat back what you hear, not to parrot them, but to prove you're engaged. Say things like, so what I'm hearing is, or it sounds like you're feeling. That small shift communicates that you're not just hearing their words, you're honoring their emotions. Because at the end of the day, listening is less about your ears and more about your heart. It's about valuing the other person enough to put your own pride on pause. And when you do that, You don't just change the conversation, you change the relationship. You prove that communication isn't a competition, it's a connection. So if you want happier communication, make this commitment every time you enter a conversation, leave your need to be right at the door, and walk in with the desire to understand. Because people don't need perfect words, they need a present heart. And when you learn to listen with that kind of intent, you won't just hear them, you'll heal them. Words have weight. Every time they leave your mouth, they either build something or break something. And the truth is, most of the tension we carry in conversations doesn't come from the subject itself. It comes from how it's said. We all know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of words spoken in haste, words full of sharp edges that cut deeper than the situation ever required. That's why speaking with clarity instead of just emotion is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever use in communication. Now, don't get me wrong. Emotions aren't the enemy. Emotions are real, they're raw, and they remind us that we're human. But when emotion becomes the driver of our words, clarity gets lost in the crash. Imagine trying to navigate a conversation when you can't see the road ahead because everything is clouded by anger, frustration, or fear. That's what happens when we let emotion speak louder than truth. It feels powerful in the moment, but it rarely lands in a way that creates understanding or peace. Think about a time you were misunderstood. Maybe you were upset, and your words came out faster than your thoughts. You knew what you meant, but the other person didn't. Instead of hearing your heart, they only heard your frustration. And by the end of it, the message you wanted to deliver was buried under tone, defensiveness, and confusion. That's what happens when we let our emotions speak louder than our clarity. The meaning gets lost, and the moment becomes heavier than it needed to be. Clarity, on the other hand, is like light. It cuts through the fog. It slows you down just enough to ask yourself, what do I really want to say right now? What's the heart of the message I need them to understand? When you pause and center yourself before speaking, you don't just communicate better, you communicate safer. The people around you no longer feel like they're dodging bullets. They feel like they're being invited into understanding. It takes practice, though, because emotion is always faster than clarity. Emotion will jump out first, and if you're not careful, it'll speak on your behalf. That's why the discipline of communication isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about slowing down long enough to express it in a way that can actually be heard. You can tell someone you're hurt without lashing out. You can express frustration without demeaning. You can share your truth without destroying theirs. And here's something important. Clarity isn't just about the words you choose, it's about the posture you bring. People hear not only what you say, but how you say it. Your tone, your volume, your body language, they're all part of the message. You can say the right thing in the wrong way, and it will still land wrong. But when your words are clear and your delivery is steady, people are more likely to not only hear you but believe you. This matters in every relationship. In marriages, clarity can save years of silent resentment. In friendships, clarity can prevent unnecessary distance. At work, clarity can be the difference between conflict and collaboration. And in parenting, clarity builds trust with kids who are desperately watching not just what you say, but how you say it. One of the best ways to check yourself is to ask, if I say it like this, will it push them away or pull them closer? Because the goal of communication isn't to win, it's to connect. And clarity always aims at connection. It removes the guesswork, it removes the hidden daggers, and it replaces assumptions with honesty. But maybe the hardest part is this: speaking with clarity often requires humility. It means stripping away the sarcasm, the passive-aggressive comments, and the defensive tone that makes us feel strong in the moment, but weak in the aftermath. It means being brave enough to say what you actually mean instead of what you think will hurt them back. It's easier to let anger do the talking, but clarity takes courage. And here's the reward. When you start practicing clarity over emotion, people start trusting your words more. They no longer have to decode what you really mean or brace themselves for the storm. They know that when you speak, they'll get honesty, steadiness, and respect. And that trust is priceless. So before you speak, slow down. Before you fire back, breathe. Before you let emotion take the wheel, remind yourself, my words can either make this heavier or they can make this lighter. Because emotions fade, but words remain. And if you want your words to be remembered for healing and not for hurting, let clarity lead the way. Because at the end of the day, people won't always remember the exact phrases you used, but they will remember the peace your clarity brought into the room. And that kind of peace is the foundation of happier communication. When conflict shows up in our conversations, our instinct is often to defend ourselves with criticism. We say things like, you always do this, or you never listen, or why can't you just get it right? It feels powerful in the moment because criticism puts us in control, or at least it feels like it does. But the truth is, criticism doesn't solve problems. It multiplies them. It builds walls instead of bridges. It pushes people away instead of pulling them closer. And what makes it even more damaging is that criticism rarely addresses the heart of the issue. It only deepens the wound. But what if, instead of criticism, we chose curiosity? What if, instead of assuming we know the other person's intentions, we actually asked? What if, instead of labeling them with, you always, and you never, we leaned in with, help me understand what you meant by that, or can you tell me what you were feeling when you said that? Curiosity transforms the entire atmosphere of communication. Because while criticism escalates tension, curiosity diffuses it. It says, I'm here to understand you, not to attack you. Think about it. The moment you feel criticized, your defenses go up. You stop listening and you start preparing your counterattack. That's why arguments spiral so quickly. They're built on two people criticizing instead of connecting. But when someone responds with curiosity, the walls don't go up, they come down. Instead of bracing for more pain, you feel a little safer. Instead of shutting down, you lean in. That's the gift curiosity brings to every conversation. It makes space for safety. And let's be real, it takes discipline to do this. Because our pride wants to be right, our frustration wants to be heard, and our anger wants to win. Curiosity asks us to step back from all of that and say, maybe I don't see the full picture here. Maybe there's more to their words, more to their actions, more to the story than I realize. It's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about giving the relationship a chance to breathe. I can promise you this 9 times out of 10, the story behind someone's reaction is bigger than what you see on the surface. The harsh words, the cold silence, the sharp tone, those are symptoms. They're rarely the root. Curiosity is how you get to the root. It's how you uncover the fear behind the anger, the insecurity behind the pride, or the hurt behind the harshness. And when you can see that root, you can respond with wisdom instead of weapons. It also changes you. The more you practice curiosity, the more patient you become. You stop jumping to conclusions. You stop making everything about you. You stop assuming that someone's tone is proof of their character instead of proof of their struggle. Curiosity slows you down long enough to see the human in front of you, not just the conflict. And here's something powerful: curiosity can save relationships that criticism would destroy. Because when you attack someone with criticism, they pull away. But when you invite them with curiosity, they open up. They may not do it perfectly, they may not even do it right away, but you've created a door instead of a wall. You've shown them that you care more about understanding than about winning. And that kind of environment is where trust is rebuilt, where healing starts, where love can breathe again. So the next time you feel the urge to say you always or you never, stop, pause. Ask instead, can you help me understand what happened here? The next time you're tempted to attack, replace it with a question. The next time you're ready to assume the worst, give them the benefit of curiosity. Because when you replace criticism with curiosity, you give the other person a chance to explain. and you give yourself the chance to actually hear the truth. And maybe the truth is this: every conversation is an opportunity to either close the distance or close the heart. Criticism closes the heart. Curiosity opens it. And if you want happier communication, if you want relationships that can survive storms and still stand strong, you have to stop building walls with your words and start opening doors with your questions. Because in the end, it's not the sharpness of your criticism that will strengthen your relationships. It's the gentleness of your curiosity that will keep them alive. One of the most overlooked parts of communication is the role silence plays. We're so conditioned to fill every gap with words, to make sure the conversation never goes quiet, that we forget silence is not the absence of communication, it's part of it. Silence gives space for meaning to settle. It allows emotions to calm down before they spill out in ways we regret. It gives the other person room to feel like what they said mattered enough for us to pause and process it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say in a conversation is nothing at all. Think about how many arguments could have ended before they exploded if someone had chosen silence instead of another sharp word. How many relationships could have been protected if, instead of firing back, one person had taken a deep breath and let the silence do the talking? Silence isn't weakness. Silence is strength under control. It's the ability to say, I don't have to respond right now to prove my point. I can wait. I can breathe. I can let this moment soften instead of harden. Silence also honors the weight of what's being shared. When someone opens up to you about their fears, their struggles, or even their mistakes, the worst thing you can do is rush in with advice or judgment. Sometimes people don't need an answer. They just need to be heard. And when you let silence hold the space, you communicate without words that their heart matters more than your response. You give them dignity. You give them respect. You give them time. It also works the other way around. When you're the one who's upset, silence is the tool that saves you from saying things you can't take back. We've all had moments where anger pushed us to speak faster than wisdom could catch up. And we've all felt the regret of words that can't be unsaid. Silence is the pause that protects you from yourself. It's the reminder that not every thought deserves to be spoken. Not every feeling needs to be dumped, and not every moment demands a reaction. But silence doesn't mean avoidance. It doesn't mean shutting down, stonewalling, or using the cold shoulder as punishment. That kind of silence destroys trust. The silence I'm talking about is intentional. It's the kind of silence that creates space for peace, the kind that slows the pace of the conversation so clarity can come, the kind that says, I value this relationship enough to not rush through it. And let's be honest, silence is uncomfortable. We want to fill the gap because we think it makes things awkward. But the truth is, it's in that awkwardness that honesty is born. It's in that pause that the other person might gather the courage to say what they're really feeling. It's in that stillness that your heart has time to align with your words. Silence is not empty. It's full of potential, full of healing, full of power. It's also a teacher. Silence teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches you that communication isn't just about what comes out of your mouth. It's about what you're willing to hold back. Sometimes the strongest voice in the room is the one that knows when not to speak. And in a world that glorifies louder, faster, and more, there's something deeply refreshing about a person who's steady enough to pause, to wait, to choose silence over chaos. If you want happier communication, start embracing the quiet moments instead of running from them. When someone shares their heart, don't rush to fill the pause, let it linger. When anger rises inside you, don't let it spill out, sit with it until you can express it with clarity and respect. When conflict escalates, don't add more fuel, step back and let silence cool the fire. Because silence doesn't erase connection, it protects it. And maybe that's the key we've been missing. Communication isn't measured by how many words we use, but by how much peace our words create. And sometimes the greatest peace comes from saying less, not more. So don't be afraid of silence. Use it. Honor it. trust it. Because in the right moment, silence can speak louder than words ever could. At the heart of every great conversation is respect. It's the one ingredient that gives your words credibility, that makes your presence safe, and that turns communication from a battle into a bridge. Without respect, even the most carefully chosen words can land like weapons. But when respect and kindness are the foundation, even hard truths can be received as love. That's why anchoring your words in respect isn't just good communication, it's essential for happier communication. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone say the right thing but in a way that made you feel small? They may have been technically correct, but their delivery stripped away the dignity of their message. On the other hand, think about the time someone corrected you, challenged you, or disagreed with you, but they did it with gentleness and grace. You didn't walk away angry, you walked away grateful. That's the difference respect makes. It's not about watering down truth. It's about wrapping truth in kindness so it can actually be heard. Respect is powerful because it tells people you matter. It's not agreeing with everything they say. It's not avoiding tough conversations. It's the ability to disagree without dishonoring, to speak your truth without shaming theirs. Respect says, even if I don't see it the way you do, I still see you as valuable. That kind of posture changes the entire direction of communication. And kindness is what carries that respect into action. Kindness is not weakness. It doesn't mean you're a pushover. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you've decided that cruelty will never be your strategy, because cruelty always costs more than it gains. Kindness isn't about letting people off the hook. It's about holding them accountable without cutting them down. It's about using words that heal even when they have to correct. The truth is, people don't forget how you make them feel. You can deliver the most logical argument, the most convincing explanation, the most airtight reasoning. But if your words are laced with disrespect, they'll only remember the sting. And the more often people feel stung by you, the less they'll trust you with their heart. But when your words are anchored in respect, people lean in. They feel safe enough to be honest. They feel valued enough to stay engaged, and they trust that even when you disagree, you won't demean them. Respect also creates consistency. When your words are consistently respectful, people don't have to wonder what version of you they're going to get today. They don't have to brace themselves for a storm. They know they can bring their concerns, their mistakes, their fears, and you'll meet them with steadiness instead of volatility. That predictability builds deep trust, and trust is the soil where real communication grows. It's worth asking yourself, do my words build dignity or break it down? Because every word does one or the other. Every word either strengthens the connection or weakens it. And sometimes all it takes is one small adjustment in tone, one more moment of patience, one extra layer of kindness to turn a tense exchange into a healing one. And this isn't just for the easy conversations. Respect matters most when the conversation is hard, when you're hurt, when you're angry, when you feel disrespected yourself. That's when the temptation is to drop kindness and fight fire with fire. But that's also when your choice has the most impact. If you can stay anchored in respect when every emotion in you wants to let go, you show not only the other person who you are, you show yourself. You prove that your character is stronger than your circumstance. Happier communication doesn't mean there won't be disagreements. It doesn't mean you'll never feel misunderstood. It means that no matter what comes, you've made a decision. Your words will never be weapons. They'll be tools. Tools to build trust, to build connection, to build peace. And the beauty is, when respect and kindness become your foundation, people start responding in kind. Because respect is contagious. Kindness is contagious. The more you give it, the more it spreads. So if you want communication that lasts, communication that heals instead of harms, let respect guide every word and kindness cover every truth. Because at the end of the day, words may fade, but the way you spoke them, the respect you carried, the kindness you showed, that will be remembered long after the conversation is over. And that memory will either build bridges or burn them. The choice is always yours.